What if I told you that history was rewritten to divide us? That the truths about race, faith, and our shared past have been hidden to control how we see each other? At Factoid Media, we uncover the stories that have been buried for centuries. In The Lost Connection, we explore the lost links between ancient civilizations, the shared wisdom of faith, and the powerful forces that shape the world we know today. In Chapter 1, we'll show how ancient cultures were united by faith, from Egypt to Mesopotamia. These civilizations didn't see boundaries, they saw a shared understanding of the divine. In Chapter 2, we'll uncover flood myths from across the world, like Noah's Ark and the Epic of Gilgamesh, revealing a common story of survival and divine intervention. But then, in Chapter 3, we'll confront the rise of divisions. Colonialism and the invention of race tore us apart, leaving scars that still shape our world. In Chapter 4, we'll explore the lasting impact of colonialism and slavery, and how it fractured societies that once thrived in unity. Finally, in Chapter 5, we'll rediscover our shared history and explore how we can rebuild the connections that were lost. Throughout this journey, we'll challenge what you thought you knew about history and race, and reveal the truths that have been hidden for too long. Subscribe to Factoid Media for more eye-opening stories. Turn on notifications so you don't miss anything, and share this journey with someone who's ready to see the world differently. Now, let's dive into The Lost Connection.
Across millennia, human civilizations were united by an intricate web of shared beliefs, cultural exchanges, and mutual experiences. Ancient societies, from the ancient Egyptians and Israelites to the Greeks, Romans, and indigenous peoples of the Americas, engaged in profound interactions, exchanging not only goods and technology, but also knowledge, spiritual practices, and ideas about the nature of the divine. These cultures were interconnected not by political boundaries or racial constructs, but through shared values, faith systems, and a common understanding of humanity's place in the cosmos. But as the centuries passed, this web of interconnectedness unraveled. With the rise of colonialism, the invention of race, and the brutal establishment of the transatlantic slave trade, the rich tapestry of human unity was systematically torn apart. New divisions based on skin color, social hierarchy, and physical traits began to dominate, reshaping how we viewed one another and ourselves. The powerful threads that once connected humanity were replaced by artificial boundaries, ones that served to reinforce inequality, exploitation, and segregation. This documentary seeks to re-examine history, to explore how these divisions emerged and how the unity that once existed can be reclaimed. By tracing the stories of faith, lineage, and culture that connect us all, we can begin to rebuild the lost connections that were severed by colonialism, slavery, and the false notion of racial superiority. Chapter 1. Ancient Unity. When we were all one. Long before colonialism and the concept of race, the world was bound together by shared stories, spiritual beliefs, and mutual respect. In the ancient world, faith and culture were the primary means of defining identity. Peoples from various regions, whether the Egyptians, Mesopotamians, Greeks, or Native American tribes, found unity in their shared reverence for the divine and their common belief in a higher purpose. One of the most striking examples of this unity is found in the ancient Near East, where the concept of a great flood appears in multiple cultural narratives. The story of Noah's Ark in the Hebrew Bible shares significant similarities with the Mesopotamian Epic of Gilgamesh, which predates it. Both stories describe a cataclysmic flood sent by the gods to cleanse the earth, with one righteous man, Noah or Utnapishtim, chosen to survive. This narrative echoes across cultures, suggesting a common understanding of the divine and the cyclical nature of human existence. The Israelites themselves were not alone in their religious understanding. Ancient Egyptians, for example, believed in the divine guidance of gods such as Ra, Osiris, and Isis, who shaped their world and ordered the heavens. The Greek gods of Mount Olympus shared similar roles, with deities like Zeus, Apollo, and Athena acting as mediators between humanity and the forces of nature. These deities were seen as protectors, teachers, and creators, influencing every aspect of life, from agriculture to governance. Moreover, the Watchers, as described in the Book of Enoch, were a group of angels who descended to earth to impart divine knowledge to humanity. This tale bears strong parallels to Greek mythology, where gods and titans descended to interact with mortals, teaching them the arts of civilization, agriculture, metallurgy, and the sciences. These stories, although culturally distinct, reveal a common belief that divine beings were entrusted with guiding humanity's development. These ancient narratives, though told through different languages and names, speak to a universal human experience, one in which the divine and mortal realms were intimately connected. This interconnectedness is key to understanding the unity that once existed between civilizations.
Let's pause for a moment and dive into something truly fascinating. Did you know the story of a great flood, like Noah's Ark, is not unique to the Bible? It appears in many ancient cultures, from the Epic of Gilgamesh in Mesopotamia to the flood myths of the Aztecs, Native Americans, and beyond. These stories have strikingly similar themes of survival, divine intervention, and rebirth. But what if these shared stories tell us something deeper? Could they be evidence of an actual historical event that affected humanity worldwide? Or do they point to a universal spiritual truth that transcends time and place? Trivia. Time. Here's a question to challenge your thinking. In the biblical account, Noah's three sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, were said to repopulate the earth after the flood. According to some scholars, the descendants of these three sons became the foundations of all modern nations. But did you know that many people argue the biblical story was used to justify racism and colonialism? Which continent is traditionally linked to each of their lineages? And why do some believe these associations were intentionally manipulated? Stay tuned, because the answer might just change how you view ancient history and the legacy it left behind.
Chapter 2. Faith and Family. A Shared Heritage. At the core of these shared religious beliefs was a common understanding of lineage and familial connection. The stories of Noah's sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, serve as a foundational narrative for many world religions. According to the Bible, Noah's three sons gave rise to the nations that populated the earth after the flood. These lineages became the foundation for later theological and cultural divisions, but they were also a reminder of humanity's shared ancestry. Judaism and Islam, two major monotheistic faiths that arose from the line of Abraham, illustrate how faith and lineage were intertwined in the ancient world. Abraham, regarded as the father of both the Jewish and Arab peoples, is revered by both Jews and Muslims as a prophet and a patriarch. The shared lineage of Isaac and Ishmael, sons of Abraham, formed the basis of a spiritual and familial connection between Jews and Arabs, transcending physical differences or territorial boundaries. In the early days of both Judaism and Islam, religious identity took precedence over ethnic distinctions. Judaism, for instance, embraced the conversion of non-Israelites, integrating individuals from diverse backgrounds into the community. Ruth, a Moabite, became part of the Israelites by choosing to follow the faith and the people of Israel. Similarly, Islam's teachings emphasize the idea that anyone, regardless of race or ethnicity, could join the Ummah, the global community of believers, through faith and submission to Allah. These faiths, grounded in shared belief and lineage, demonstrate how ancient societies were united by common theological and spiritual frameworks, rather than by physical appearance or ethnic identity. Chapter 3. The Rise of Divisions. The Impact of Colonization. The unity that once existed between civilizations began to unravel with the rise of European colonialism in the 16th and 17th centuries. As European powers expanded their empires into Africa, Asia, and the Americas, they introduced new concepts of race and identity, driven by the need to justify the exploitation of indigenous peoples and enslaved Africans. The invention of race as a rigid social construct was a key element of this transformation. In the colonial context, racial categories were used to differentiate between European colonizers and the peoples they subjugated. These categories were not based on inherent biological differences, but were socially and politically constructed to maintain power. Europeans began to categorize people based on physical characteristics, skin color, hair texture, facial features, using these distinctions to justify the enslavement of Africans and the displacement of indigenous populations. The transatlantic slave trade played a pivotal role in the creation of racial categories. As millions of Africans were forcibly transported to the Americas, a racial hierarchy was established that positioned Europeans at the top and Africans at the bottom. This new racial order justified the brutal treatment of enslaved Africans and solidified the idea that race was a fixed and immutable characteristic. Over time, these racial categories became entrenched in every aspect of life, from legal systems to social structures. Laws were enacted that restricted the rights of non-Europeans, while ideas of racial superiority became ingrained in the educational, scientific, and religious institutions of colonial powers. This period of colonization and the rise of racial ideology would have lasting consequences, affecting societies for centuries to come. Chapter 4. A World Divided: The Legacy of Colonialism and Slavery. The divisions created by colonialism and the racial ideologies that emerged during this period are still felt today. In the United States, the legacy of slavery and segregation continues to shape social and economic disparities. African Americans, who were once enslaved and considered property, still face systemic inequalities in education, healthcare, and criminal justice. The struggle for civil rights, led by figures like Martin Luther King Jr. and Rosa Parks, sought to dismantle these divisions, but many challenges remain. In Africa and other former colonies, the borders drawn by European powers during the colonial era have often ignored ethnic and cultural divisions, leading to conflicts that persist to this day. The division of Africa into arbitrary nation-states, without regard for the peoples who live there, has resulted in internal strife, civil wars, and political instability. The legacy of colonialism is also visible in the economic exploitation of many of these nations, which were stripped of their natural resources and forced into dependency on foreign powers. These divisions were further entrenched by the rise of nationalism, where identity was tied not to shared beliefs or faith, but to territorial and ethnic distinctions. The concept of the nation-state, which emerged in the 18th and 19th centuries, solidified these divisions, creating a world of competing national identities and fueling racial and ethnic conflicts. Chapter 5. Reclaiming Our Shared History: Rediscovering Unity. Despite the divisions imposed by colonialism, a growing movement seeks to rediscover the shared history of humanity. By returning to the ancient understanding of interconnectedness, based on faith, lineage, and culture, we can begin to break down the barriers that have separated us. Afrocentric scholarship, which reclaims African history and culture from a perspective free from colonial distortions, has gained momentum, offering a new narrative that highlights the rich and diverse contributions of African peoples to global civilization. Furthermore, interfaith dialogue and the recognition of shared religious narratives are helping to bridge the gaps between different communities. The recognition that Judaism, Christianity, and Islam share common roots in the Abrahamic faiths is an important step in rediscovering the unity that once existed between these religions.
Thank you for joining us on this journey through the Lost Connection. What we've uncovered today is just the beginning, challenging the narratives that have divided us and rediscovering the stories that unite us. History was rewritten to divide us, but together, we can reclaim what's been erased. From lost gospels to hidden wisdom, Factor Media is here to shine a light on the past and empower you for a better future. Remember our controversial trivia. The lineages of Noah's sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, are tied to continents. Shem's descendants are traditionally linked to Asia, Ham to Africa, and Japheth to Europe. But these associations were manipulated over time, fueling racial divisions that continue to echo today. This is just one of many truths we'll continue to uncover. If this documentary resonated with you, don't stop here. Subscribe to Factor Media, turn on notifications, and stay connected for more hidden revelations. Share this video with someone ready to challenge everything and dive deeper into the forgotten past. Your support makes all of this possible. If you'd like to help us grow and produce more content like this, consider donating to Factor Media Ministries via Cash App at $Factor Media. Every contribution, no matter how small, helps us continue bringing these stories to light. Keep questioning, keep seeking, and keep believing in the power of truth. We'll see you in the next chapter.